Happy New Year, everybody. Happy Fire Horse. We finally made it. Um, we are in the midst still of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and that will become exact on the 20th, which will be Friday. So the energy has begun. We definitely felt the very visceral shift with Saturn and Neptune and Aries. And then, of course, when they reach that exact conjunction on Friday, I anticipate that to just be kind of another level or octave of energy. But today, we celebrate the Chinese New Year, the beginning of the Fire Horse. And of course, we had the new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius, which did happen really early this morning. So that was at about, I think, like 7 a.m. Eastern time-ish. So that eclipse happened, and then the moon has now moved into Pisces. So this is the wonkiness I was talking about of the second half of February, because the first half of February felt like this incredible buildup of energy, right? Like Neptune was already in Aries, waiting for Saturn's entrance. We were literally going through the absolute tail end of Saturn at the 29th degree of Pisces, which I talked about in my last update, as that being very karmic. And that basically we had to go through almost this like energetic review, because as we move in now to the Saturn and Neptune and Aries era, I think that the biggest difference is, I gave the example of Inception, right? Because I love that movie. I think it perfectly encapsulates like the kind of confusion that happens in Pisces, where it's like the dream within the dream, and you're never really sure what's going on, and you're never really sure, right? Am I in a dream, and whose dream am I in? And so I thought that analogy always makes perfect sense to me. And that waking up from the dream and kind of facing reality head on is very Aries. But another thing that I think is a great analogy to these two in particular, Saturn and Neptune, is the phrase, we create our reality, right? So I think we're all very aware that because we're creator beings, we are part of a collective consciousness. We're also all part of source, that essentially we do create our own reality. Now in Pisces, I think I would say we more created reality through like our thoughts, or our, wishes. And because the Piscean era was so much about like placing intentions and manifestation and ceremony and praying and kind of wishing and hoping and, wanting. And so I think, and, our thoughts were a huge part of creating reality in the Piscean era, right? Because we were all very much in that cosmic soup. And so, the reality that we saw was very much a reflection of the collective thought body, right? And so and that's why we all kind of could live in our own realities in ways, right? Because depending on your thoughts and what you were putting out there and your intentions and what you were wishing or hoping or wanting to manifest or create in your life, that had a huge impact on, how you experienced reality. But then there was also the fact that there was a lot of interference, right? Because we were all like very much sharing almost in the consciousness. There was a lot of interference. Someone else's thoughts or somebody else's energy or somebody else's intentions could kind of interfere with yours, right? And so we experienced a lot of that. Now, the Saturn and Neptune and Aries era, I think, is going to change the game on how we create reality. Because to me, the combination of Saturn and Neptune is quite literally the creation of reality. Saturn being the bridge, Saturn bringing things into tangible form through, you have to create a structure, a container. You have to put the work in. You have to put the effort in. Like, that is how we bring things into form, right? And Neptune is the dream, and Neptune is the intuition and source and spirit, imagination. So it's how we use our consciousness and then how we bring that into manifestation. So these two together have a huge implication, right, on how we create reality. And so now that these two are in Aries, I think that the way of creating reality is going to change, right? So again, there might be this huge shift in how we do energy work and how we interact with reality. And it's different from that Piscean era. So now I believe that you will create what you are and not what your intention is and not what you're wishing for or quote unquote manifesting or thinking about, or even sometimes we say, in the Piscean era, your energy creates reality, right? And your energy or your consciousness can either be coming from, a lower vibration. I hate these words at this point, but you get my gist, like the lower vibes, right? Of, being in lower energies and programmings and conditionings. That had a lot to do with how we would create reality, right? Fear, especially, is a very potent creator. So depending on how much fear was in our energy system, whatever programmings and conditionings and things like that were still part of our consciousness, that had a big, manifesting quality. And with the Aries energy, it's like you will just simply create what you are. And I think that the difference in that is who you are is not necessarily what you wish for or what your intent is or what you focus on or what you pray for or what your programmings and conditionings are. That none of that is actually who you are at your core. So I think that this new era of creating reality, when I'm saying you will get what you are, it is about what you are embodying. And to me, embodiment isn't just energy, right? Like it's not just about the frequency of your energy. It's about what you do every day. It's about how you speak. It's about how you think. It's about your emotional regulation. It's all of that. So to me, who you are, embodiment is the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies combined. That is who you are. And so I think the biggest difference here is, going back to the Piscean era, we could say one thing, but then do another, right? So you would have tons of people, especially as the spiritual community boomed, I think, and everybody, was into spirituality and everybody wanted to teach spiritual concepts, which is great. But a lot of it wasn't actually being embodied, right? So you could have someone who's kind of sharing all these spiritual wisdoms and they have all this beautiful information. They're telling you, this is what you need to do and this is how this is, but they weren't embodying it. That's going to be the difference in this next cycle. So our realities will start to reflect who we are. And so this is good learning for us because now we kind of get to cut through that confusion of Pisces and get to really see how our lives are mirroring what we've been embodying. And again, that was a little bit challenging, I think, for all of us. I definitely struggled with that in the Piscean era because it felt like we were always in a state of absorbing, right? You're always absorbing all the energy around you, other people, the collective. We were always processing something. We were always kind of unraveling deeper layers to ourselves, especially with the snake era. And so it was kind of hard sometimes to be well, what am I embodying? What is my embodiment? Is this me? Is this you? Is this collective? Is this just a wound? And, it kind of got a little bit foggy there. And so now it's a good learning process because we'll simply get to see that. And so then we can adjust accordingly. And I think that the biggest theme, as the fire horse also comes in today, the biggest theme is that if you don't if you're not enjoying your experience, again, in the Pisces realm, we would say, well, you've got to change your perspective. You've got to change your belief systems, how you're thinking about things. You've got to change your frequency, right? And that was all very, very important work that we had to learn. And now in Aries, it's like, if you're not enjoying your life experience, or, you know, you want things to change, you have to change. You have to do something differently. And this is going to feel different for us, right? Like, I think we're going to be called to like really take accountability for our embodiment and like, okay, you know, let me look at what I'm actually doing every day. Let me look at like what I'm actually physically doing and how I'm executing. Let me look at, you know, if I'm saying one thing, but I'm actually not doing it. Am I, you know, saying that I'm going to do XYZ and then I actually don't follow through with it? Am I getting reactive, which is very Aries, right? So we're going to have to really watch our kind of emotional temperaments. You know, what am I embodying every day? Who am I? And I think that's a really cool thing, but it is definitely a shift. And so as we've gone through the eclipse this morning and now the fire horse is really here, I think, you know, I talked all about this eclipse and Gene Key 30, and it just feels like a new path is very much unfolding. And I actually saw this great video today. I'll probably post it, but it was about an astrologer talking about today's eclipse and just the square to Uranus and Taurus, right? And how Uranus, being the ruler of this eclipse, in a square to the eclipse, was really is really testing something. There's a pressure test here, and something has to give. And I definitely was focusing on the financial aspect to it, because I do think that obviously Uranus and Taurus is here to shake up the foundations of what we call abundance and security and prosperity, and how that something's got to give there, because for all of us to truly follow our visions and our passions and our purposes, we have to let go of this very limiting, restraining system that is money, right? And she was talking about how, you know, Uranus being there in a square was really kind of saying, hey, you've got to like break out of the rules. You've got to make your own rules and decide what you're going to do moving forward. And of course, the ancient ruler of Aquarius is Saturn, and Saturn's in Aries, which is a very similar concept of like, it's up to us. It is up to us to decide what we are going to do. And again, that Saturn aspect, because Saturn is karmic and Saturn forces us to grow up, right? Is that Saturn in Aries is going to say, if you want the rewards, right, you also have to have the responsibilities. Like, again, Piscean era was super, it was really something. And you could tell, right, from all the conversations we're having, from Epstein files to fucking global events to disclosures coming out, like we see the depth of the corruption, right? And we're thinking to ourselves, how are all of these people, all of these elites, all of these people in positions of power, all of these systems of authority and control, how are they all getting away with everything? How are they all benefiting, but have zero accountability, right? And that, again, very much just a Piscean type of thing. And so this is really going to start changing. I do think we are going to start seeing accountability at really high levels, especially as we progress through the year with Saturn there. And that's kind of going to be the name of the game for us this year, right? Is like whatever we set out to do, whatever we're inspired by this year, whatever feels like it's our new mission, something that excites us, something that we're passionate about, feels like our next era. That's going to be, so in line with the action-packed momentum of the year of like, go for it, right? But the thing about Saturn and Aries, and especially if any of you are going to be in your Saturn return with Saturn and Aries, one of the lessons there is that in order to get the rewards from Saturn and Aries, we have to also take on the responsibility and the accountability. There's not going to be as much like leeway anymore. It's got to be that it's very, again, it's about the embodiment. So this is going to, I think, really focus on leadership and people in leadership positions, but individually, of course, as well, where, especially if you look at the area of your chart, right? Like I've been saying, just, see what house it's happening in. That's the area where you can get some great rewards, but it is going to take a level of like, I have to also take on the responsibility associated with these rewards. I have to actively change. I have to do something differently. So, I think it's really great. It's going to be a very inspiring year, but that is just something I felt into with Saturn and Aries, is that it might feel a little hard at first. It might feel like, all of a sudden we feel like we have to take on a lot more, maybe bite off more than we can chew kind of thing. But we'll get there, and so the wonkiness is coming in because the second half of February here, we have the moon in Pisces now. So the moon's already ingressed into Pisces for the rest of the day. And then tomorrow the sun will enter Pisces and we will once again be in a Pisces stellium. We can't escape it. It's so painful. But so by tomorrow, we will have the sun and the moon and Mercury and Venus and the North Node in Pisces. And this is going to continue, okay, through the end of February, especially on February 26th. Mercury is going to retrograde in Pisces. And I did write a Substack article on that if you guys want to read it. But it's basically like Mercury retrograde in Pisces is going to last for 2 months. It's taking us on some final journey back into the dream. It's like one final dive. But by the time we get to the first week of March, Mars, unfortunately, will also join the Pisces party, but we will have Venus move into Aries. And then by the end of March, we'll be in Aries season. So, there will be some relief, but it's a little bit of an interesting time with just all the fire energy, but then this lingering Pisces stellium. And, this was our first eclipse of the year. Our next eclipse will be on the 3-3 portal. So I'll talk all about that as we get closer to. And interestingly, that one is going to be at 12 degrees Virgo, and it's a full moon lunar eclipse. We also had a full moon lunar eclipse last March. But this one is going to be in Gene Key 64. So if any of you have that, funny enough, this one is called the Aurora Key. And this is the shadow of confusion to the gift of imagination and the Siddhi of illumination. So I thought that was super interesting as that being our next eclipse. So it feels like this lingering Pisces energy that still might cause some lack of clarity will definitely become clear by that eclipse on the 3-3. And I think we'll kind of cut through the fog of that. But yeah, great day to, just see what comes through, see how everybody's feeling. I think it's a great day for like ceremonies or anything like that. And yeah, we'll see how this weekend progresses with the conjunction. I will be hosting the Cosmic Coherence Seminar this weekend, and we will be beginning the first phase of the Phoenix initiation, which came through really strongly as our next kind of work to be done. So that's really cool. I'm excited to kind of share my downloads on that. But yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Love ya.